Welcome to Karma's harvest. They say the loudest sound in the world is the silence of a man who has lost everything. But for Valerius, the silence was about to be shattered by a voice he thought he had buried years ago. What do you do when the ghost of your past becomes the judge of your future? Tonight, we close the ledger on the man who tried to own our words, and we discover that some debts can never be paid in cash. Valerius sat in the oppressive darkness of his penthouse, the only light coming from the emergency backup of his private server. His billions were gone, distributed back to the very people he called monkeys. But he wasn't finished. He possessed a black box, a collection of encrypted backdoors into the world's most secure central banks. He gripped his mouse, his knuckles white, and whispered, "You think you won? I built this world. I can tear it down." He clicked the file, expecting to see lines of code that would give him back his empire. Instead, a video window popped up. The screen didn't show code. It showed a small, cluttered room filled with old hardware. In the center sat a young woman, perhaps no older than 24. Her eyes weren't filled with the cold ambition. Valerius knew they were filled with a calm, steady justice. "Hello, Valerius," she said. Her voice was thin but resonant. Valerius froze. He recognized that voice. It belonged to the daughter of Elias Thorne, the brilliant programmer. Valerius had framed and driven to ruin a decade ago, to steal the initial code for the Echo virus. "My name is Maya," she continued, her image flickering on his screen. "You taught me that code has no soul, Valerius, but my father taught me that code has a memory. You thought the truth-speak protocol was a glitch in your AI? No, I wrote it. I waited for the moment your greed reached its peak. The moment you would use your favorite word enough times to trigger your own destruction. You didn't just lose your money tonight. You lost your invisibility." Valerius laughed, a jagged, desperate sound. "You're a child, Maya. You think a few refunds will stop me? I have the keys to the world's vault right here." He slammed his hand on the keyboard, attempting to execute the black box virus. But as he hit enter, the monitors in his room didn't turn red. They turned bright, blinding white. A new notification appeared, broadcast active. Global uplink established. Maya's face disappeared, replaced by a grid of thousands of camera feeds. Valerius realized with a sinking stomach that his own security cameras, his private microphones, and even the camera on his laptop were now broadcasting live to every device infected by the Echo virus. Billions of people who had just received their refunds were now watching. The man who had robbed them, they saw his disheveled hair, his manic eyes, and the luxury of the penthouse he had built on their suffering. "Stop it!" Valerius screamed, flailing at the screens. "I'll kill you all! You're nothing! I am the king!" Every word he uttered was translated in real time into 100 languages and subtitled across the globe. The world watched as the genius architect of their misery revealed himself to be a small, frightened, and hateful man. He began to confess, not out of guilt, but out of a desperate need to feel powerful. He bragged about the banks he'd hacked, the lives he'd ruined, and the stupidity of the people who let him do it. He didn't realize that his confession was the final key Maya needed. The black box wasn't a weapon for him, it was a digital cage. As he spoke, the software recorded every admission of guilt, automatically filing legal complaints in every jurisdiction on Earth. The police weren't just coming, they were already in the elevator. The heavy steel doors of his penthouse hissed open, not with the sound of a guest arriving, but with the heavy thud of boots. Valerius turned, his face illuminated by the glow of 1,000,000,000 people watching his arrest. As the handcuffs clicked shut, a final message from Maya scrolled. Across his vision, "The harvest is complete. You reaped what you sowed, and now the world will finally have its peace." Valerius was led away, not into the history books as a digital god, but into a cold cell where his words would never be heard again. The Echo virus didn't just vanish, it transformed. It became a global transparency tool, a legacy left by Maya, to ensure that those in power could never again hide behind a curtain of code. But even as the world celebrated, a new shadow began to stir. Deep within the encrypted layers of the dark web, a message was sent from an unknown source. Valerius was just a test. Phase 2 begins now. Thank you for visiting Karma's Harvest. The story of Valerius shows us that while we may think we can hide behind screens and systems, the truth has a way of finding the light. Justice may be delayed, but it is never denied. If you enjoyed this two-part journey, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Our next story involves a silent auction where the items being sold aren't art or jewelry, but the memories of the people in the room. You won't want to miss what happens when the highest bidder wants to buy a past that isn't theirs. What would you do if your most precious memory was for sale? Tell us in the comments. Remember, the seeds of today are the fruit of tomorrow.